Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in this panel. We're going to be talking about labor and delivery and getting questions answered about all things labor and delivery. My name is Joy Chua Schwartz. I work at Ritual. I'm the Director of Business Development, and I'm 6 months pregnant. So I'm very happy to have all of you on board to answer my questions in addition to the questions that we have. I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit more about what you do, and maybe just tell us how things are going for you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Suzanne Gilberg Lenz. I am an obstetrician and gynecologist, and I've been in practice in Beverly Hills for the last 20 years, which is crazy. So I've delivered thousands of babies. I've attended thousands of births. I am in a very, very active practice. We have, I think probably outside of the big Cedars practice, the private practice in the area. So we are very busy with pregnancy and all of its forms all the time. And I myself have 2 kids, so I've personally been in labor and delivery as a patient. I also have a background in Ayurvedic medicine and integrative and holistic medicine, so I have a little bit of a different perspective on things.
Hi, I'm Lauryn Evarts Bosstick of The Skinny Confidential, and I just had a baby 4 months ago. I went in very much as someone that knew nothing about children, but I'm absolutely obsessed with her. I'm sure every mother says that. And her name is Zaza, and she's sleeping right now, so we hope she stays asleep.
My name's Carson Meyer. I am a birth doula and the founder of Sea in the Moon, which is a non-toxic and environmentally conscious skincare line.
Cool, awesome. So maybe let's start talking about birth plans. And I think a lot of our customers, a lot of pregnant women think about making birth plans, knowing maybe that birth doesn't always go the way that they plan for it to go. So I think the question is, like, do you recommend putting together a birth plan? And if so, what should be included on that birth plan?
I'm happy to start as
go for it.
Helps people create birth plans all the time. You know, I think, first of all, I think birth plans have gotten a really bad reputation because of a terrible name. The name birth plan, right? Everybody who works in birth, who's ever given birth, knows that you can't plan birth. I call it birth intentions, right? Or birth preferences. And I do think that is super important.
Yeah.
I think that being reminded and reminding our clients and patients that it's okay to ask for what you need in birth is so important. Does that mean you're going to have the birth of your dreams? No. But having something that is printed out, to what I recommend for my clients is they bring it to their doctor or provider before the birth, so around 37, 38 weeks, to make sure that the needs that they are, what they're expecting in terms of the quality of care, comfort measures, hospital policy, that they're not walking in and being surprised, because it's not fun when you are going through labor to have to I think be in this space of negotiating, right, your needs. And so I think having that birth plan in place ahead of time and using it as a tool to communicate with the provider. And by the way, find out if you're not in the right hospital or not with the right provider. And then use it as a tool to communicate with nurses. I think when you get to the hospital, ideally your labor is moving along. And what happens to your brain in labor is that it slows down. It's not meant to be analytical. It's not meant to be in a communicative state. So having something on paper helps, I think, to avoid having to get into that, to get out of labor land and get into that more cerebral state. So that's a way that it's used for me and my clients in labor. It's likely it's the first time you're ever meeting your nurses. So it's a great way to kind of introduce yourself, give background, talk about your health history, right? If you're pre-registered in the hospital, I'm sure a lot of that's already there, but the nurses have to go through a series of questions. Some of that are important for the patient to answer themselves, but a lot of them, like weight and height, they can refer to the birth plan. So I put more than I think others would. I try to keep it on one page, but I like to put some of the basic information around my client so that they don't have to interrupt their labor zone that they're in. And then, you know, if, for example, if a client doesn't want to have an epidural or is kind of open to waiting to see how they feel, and something, for example, to put on the birth plan is when I'm ready for the epidural, or if I decide to have one, I will ask you for it. So please don't discuss pain medication for me, right? That's leaving it open to not saying under no, there is no world where I will have an epidural or I'm going to do it this way. It's saying until that comes up, if it comes up, let me talk about it. So that's more how I utilize a birth plan, if that.
And let me just add a couple of things. First of all, you know, it's so how it's going to be responded to is going to really vary from location to location, from hospital to hospital, practice to practice, and regionally. There are differences, I think, in different hospitals in this county. So the two things I will say that I think are really important here that differ, I think, with Carson is I think 37 or 38 weeks in my practice is the perfect time to talk about it because we already know each other. 37 or 38 weeks is pretty late to have a conversation about a lot of the basics in the average pregnancy. But this is where the tension lies. Are you really going to bring a birth preferences list in at 16 weeks? I mean, I think this kind of speaks to how important what Carson is talking about, communication and understanding what your intentions are. I love birth intentions. I think that's a much better way to call it. Preferences is sort of what it's turned into, but I think intentions is even better because I think if you can use it as a tool to start locating what's interesting to you, what's important to you, where your priorities are, what your goals are, if at all possible, very early on, then you can do the gut check and the head check and make sure you're in the right environment and with the right team. Yeah. And so maybe you won't have all of the details spelled out at that point, but I think if you're even starting to go there early in the pregnancy, you're going to have a much better experience because that communication really needs to start very early, preferably before you get pregnant, actually, but that's not available for everybody, right? That's not necessarily realistic. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know, I grew up in medicine in the time when if somebody came in with a birth plan, and it was a birth plan and it was kind of aggressive, to be honest, a lot of times, and it was 4 pages long, and there was a lot of hostility on both sides. And I've seen birth and the way we birth in this country, or at least in this hospital that I'm at for the last 25 years, evolve and change a lot. It's 100% communication. Every relationship is about communication. This one is no different.
So true.
Just playing off what all you guys said, I went into my birth with no expectation. I practiced a lot of stoicism, so it was like, I can't control this. This is my preference. This is my intention. This is how I would like it to go. And I really relinquished control over that area. I really, instead of like zoning in on my birth plan, I practiced just understanding that it wasn't going to go exactly how I wanted it. And that was more where I put my energy. I think writing it down is good for manifestation and just having sort of a plan in your head.
Yeah. And I think there's such a difference between like surrendering to that is and also being an advocate for yourself.
Right.
I think understanding that hospital policy and our healthcare system as a whole is a very cookie cutter. We all fit into this one thing. And I think in looking at individualized care, saying, okay, I know this is what you might do when I get to the hospital. I know this is what procedure is. And I know that a certain amount of that is there for my well-being and for my baby's well-being. But I also know just because of who I am and my specific needs and my specific pregnancy, these are the things that I have, been able to practice my informed consent to either opt out of or go towards. And so I think that's another just a reason that it's used.
Well, and I think I'm gonna beg to differ. Again, I have a certain specific experience, but it's a very, very deep and long experience. And I can speak to my experiences in the hospitals that I've attended births. I don't think it's cookie cutter. I understand where you're coming from, and what you meant by that.
And not provider by provider, but like hospital policy.
But our words are powerful, so we have to be very careful. Which is why I think that the intention setting aspect of it, and then the surrender to it are these beautiful key yin and yang that we have to have together. And again, Lauryn, it sounds like you trusted yourself and trusted your partner and trusted your team, which is why you were able to have the experience that you had, right? Because you didn't have to be worried like, oh, I got to advocate for myself because I don't know if I trust this person who's taking care of me. You know, when we feel like we can't trust, we're going to be in fight or flight, and our labor is going to be completely different. It's actually going to have a hormonal impact, and it's going to have, you know, when we're in fight or flight, we're not supposed to have a baby, right? We're supposed to survive, not supposed to be vulnerable. So anything that we can do to create an environment where we can safely be vulnerable, and again, exactly what Carson is saying, like almost like pre-advocate for yourself and make sure that conversation has been had, that's going to allow you to be in the experience and have, it sounds like Lauryn had a really great experience. Whatever the details were, don't matter to her, because she felt like she got to do what she needed to do, and she was able to let go of the things that she was not in control of. And so if we don't understand that we're not in control of very much right now while we do the Zoom call, then we have learned nothing. And all the skills that we're using to do what we're doing now are all skills that are really great for birth.
It's actually a good segue to a question that we had from new moms, expecting moms, on how to manage nervousness about going into labor and delivery. It sounds like setting intentions, pre-advocating for yourself are really good tools to help with the nervousness. What are some things that you guys in your experiences recommend to women, or Lauryn, in your own experience navigating the unknown? What are some things that you did to help quell that nervousness?
I'm going to be really honest. I did the same thing I did with my wedding. I didn't Google anyone else. I didn't read all these books. I didn't look at other people's experiences. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. For me, I didn't give it so much energy. I had my intentions down. If it went that way, great. If it didn't, it didn't. And I feel like sometimes with how much content there is on the internet, it can actually end up hurting you. So what I did is I picked 2 people that I was going to consume their content. It's like, if I didn't want to consume someone's content who was holistic, someone who was not, like, I just wanted to maybe consume 1 or 2 people's content, stick with that, and then make my own ideas and go with my own intuition. And I really listened to my intuition. And I think for me, I had a really beautiful birth. And I actually, I don't know if this is weird or not, I really liked it. I can't wait to do it again. And so that's what I would say. But again, that's just been my own experience.
Yeah, I think, you know, nervousness and anxiety is normal. And I think if we can normalize some of the things that are hard about birth, I think it's obvious what about the actual birth might be hard. But I think this romanticized idea that is being dismantled, I think, largely at this point, but still persists, that it's all supposed to be rainbows and unicorns and fairy dust and all that, and you feel so great and you look like, you know, that beautiful, you know, the picture.
And like happy
wheat field. With a flowy gown that's kind of, you can see the sunlight through. I mean, that might happen, and it also might not happen. And it's okay to have your good days and your bad days, but not get so attached to any of it. It's really hard. Pregnancy is really challenging. I think pregnancy in the world that we have lived in for the last number of generations is actually amazing, but very hard, because there's this idea that, like, you're going to perfect it, you're going to study it, and then you're going to achieve it. And then you're going to, and Lauryn, you're such a breath of fresh air. My gosh. I mean, that's so great, you know, because
thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah, no, really, because I think that was really a smart tactic. I was a resident during both my pregnancies. So talk about having TMI. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for whatever reason, I have a personality style, which for better or worse, I can put those blinders. And I did this. I didn't read anything. To this day, I've read one book. I've read textbooks, but I've read one pregnancy book, and only because I was asked to vet it medically by you know who. So you both know her. So I just, that is such great advice. I love it, because I think a lot of the advice we get is to like overwhelm ourselves. And there has to be a balance between having information so that, as Carson noted, you have the information so you can give informed consent.
Yeah.
You know, you're not consenting if you don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
Not like flip yourself out. That is not going to be good for your mood at all. And it's not going to be good for your experience.
Yeah.
I also think the way I'm trying to approach motherhood is very similar. I think you can get really caught up in Googling, when are they supposed to talk? When are they supposed to roll over? When are they supposed to do that? I don't want to Google any of that. Everyone gets to the end of the road somehow. Like, she's going to do what she's going to do on her own pace. And it's pointless, because you can't control when the baby's going to, I'm sure there's things that you can do to help it along the way, but like, you really can't control that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's really how kind of the same way I approached birth is with motherhood. Again, I don't know if that's the right advice for everyone, because some people like to know all the facts in front of them. But having a doula definitely does help with that whole process. I feel like having a doula gives you the information you need without being overwhelmed.
Yeah. And that's where I miss the doulas right now, especially because I feel like, listen, first of all, let's just acknowledge how privileged this conversation is, right? There are women who are having birth under very different circumstances. They really need to know what they're getting into and who their team is and how to advocate for themselves, especially now where they may not be able to have an extra person. I cannot more strongly state that we're talking about a very specific person here, and it's not everybody. And we're very lucky to be one of those people or to serve those people. So now that I got tangential, but I feel like it's really important to acknowledge that. This is where I miss the doulas on labor and delivery. And I'm like, when can we have them back? Because, there's nothing like a great doula, and full disclosure, Carson and I have worked together, having someone who is a team member, who is supporting the laboring mom and her partner and whoever else is there, and they're supporting me as the physician, they're supporting the other healthcare providers, the nurses. They're that extra layer of communication, of safety, of trust, of, like I said about Lauryn, like, if you have a sense of safety, you will be able to surrender. And having a doula, even if they're zooming in, really can really make the difference in that way and really help curb the anxiety that is going to be a normal part of the process. But the one thing I do want to say is, I always tell my patients, once you're, and you alluded to it, Carson, once you're in labor, once you're like on the bus, you're really altered. So if you're really like up in your head and you're thinking, you're probably not in labor. You know what I mean? The gift of labor is you're kind of like in your own world.
As somebody who's like struggled with my own anxiety, it's like a constant reminder of being like accepting it, like you so beautifully said, right? Like, okay, I know that my anxiety comes from a place of wanting to be well, wanting to protect myself, wanting to protect the ones I love. Like, what a beautiful thing about me, right? That I like have that quality. But at a certain point, right, even like the amount of books you read or things you prepare, at a certain point, it starts to hurt, right? We need some anxiety, right? That's great. We want to have concern and be looking out for danger, and that's part of our survival instinct. But after that, it's not serving anybody or anything. And I think that's what you're saying too. Like, once you get into that birth space, the fear does not help you.
Mm-mm.
Or in the pregnancy. It really doesn't. Curiosity, right? And
Right.
Getting a doula and becoming informed and creating that birth intentions and having those conversations can help you, but fear itself is not the tool.
So maybe let's talk more about birth teams, women going through birth, having a partner, having a doula, having people to support her. What can, in the absence of a doula right now who can't be in the hospital, what can a doula do to help the labor and delivery process? And then once they maybe have to, give that baton over to the partner, what can a partner do to help the labor and delivery process and help moms experience?
Yeah, I mean, my practice has kind of changed a lot through this, but what has remained the same is our prenatal prep work. And I think that that's, again, like so important, right? Is so that when you do walk into the labor, you're feeling prepared and also feeling like you can kind of let go and let labor take over. So I always do a lot of prep work with my clients for that reason, but now knowing that I won't be there, I'm adding more prep sessions in. I'm making myself available on Zoom or phone or whatever it is. But I think knowing what to expect, I do this COVID, no COVID, but giving the partner the tools to support the birthing person. I would say a doula can't replace that partner, right? The way I like to work with my clients is, we know oxytocin, which is the love hormone, is so crucial. And so that togetherness and closeness of the two people who created the baby together does so much for the labor. And so my job is really to be there to whisper in the partner's ear, try this, do this. And yes, obviously I come in and do my massage and do work, but that's always my goal, is to help the family feel like they have the tools to support one another. Because when that baby's there, I won't really be there. I mean, I'm always there to turn to, but I think part of this work is really helping people feel empowered to support themselves. And that I think can remain regardless of what's going on.
Any other tips for partners during the labor and delivery process? Like what should I tell my husband?
I think it's such an interesting experience because it's really an opportunity to step up. And especially now, where if you would have hired a doula or you have hired a doula, like you're going to have to you're going to have to deal. And it's okay. I think I think at this point in my life, my advice tends to be the same for almost everything. Like, the truth is, and so stop trying to do it perfect. That's not even a thing. Just try to be honest, try to be authentic, try to not make it about yourself. This is good advice for anybody who's going to be in the birth room. It is not about anybody but the person having the baby come out of her body. So just take a breath. And that doesn't mean you can't take care of yourself. That means you also, so here's a good thing. Like, one of the things that's come up is that in our institution, and I think this is common almost everywhere, that the partner who is there, the support person who's there, can go in and out of the room. They have to stay in the institution. I mean, can you imagine staying in the room for 26 hours? That's insane. I guess some places maybe they do that. That doesn't seem to make sense. Take the opportunity to go take a walk, get a breath, get some Starbucks, like nourish yourself. I've always said this. When I come in to visit, I always make sure that, and this is probably my maternal instinct, but I always make sure that the support person took a nap, had something to eat. They don't need to go on a hunger strike. Like, that's not helpful, because if you're going to center somebody else, you are going to have to take care of yourself. So maybe giving people permission. And I think when you have the doula there, the doula is going to be like, hey buddy, it's okay, I'm here,
Yeah.
and so maybe we just need to get that message out there now. Like, it's cool. Like, she doesn't need you every second. She needs you to be 100% present when you're present. So, just, and the professional staff in that room understand that you don't know what you're doing and that you are not a professional. And that this is a thing for you too, that it's emotional for you too, that it's nerve-wracking for you too, that, maybe it's really hard to see your person in pain or struggling or challenged. And it's like, it's a huge growth experience for both of you. This is a huge opportunity, because you're going to also realize that you're going to be okay. And you did that, and you created that space for her and with her. That's awesome. Win-win. But I deliver babies for a living, so, I'm a Pollyanna.
And Lauryn, what was your experience like?
I think it was really beautiful and cool to see how much he stepped it up. He does tend to get hangry. So the doula, I told her that, so she managed that. He's the one that will do the hunger strike for like 2 days, has no attachment to food. So she made sure that, like I said, he was streamlined so he could be the best partner, that I could have. I think that I would give him 100%. He really stepped up. He was along every step of the way. He was texting while I was pushing the baby out, and I almost stabbed him. But other than that, it was good. I think, again, you need to talk to your doula. Do you want your husband or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, like right when the baby's coming out? You have to have these conversations so they know. Because when you're in the moment, you need a doula to be like, to sort of manage, for me, my husband, where I wanted him, telling him to get off his phone, just like little things that we had talked about. It was very, very helpful.
Another question in line with all of this preparation that women can do before going into labor is hospital bags. What should women bring into the hospital? What should be in your hospital bag? What's helpful? What's not helpful? Do you just go for it and bring food and a robe and everything and socks? Or are there things that you really need and certain things that maybe don't need to take up space in your bag?
I think right now the bag has changed, especially if you don't have your doula. So what I'm doing with clients is kind of giving them my bag when I leave them at home. And so I'm like, so this is, I'm going to tell you my bag. Obviously, yes, like bring your toothbrush and your personal care stuff that you need as the birthing person. But this is what I bring for my clients. And I think without a doula right now, this is what you should have. Hot water bottle pack, great. Snacks, big fan of snacks. Personally, I don't love all the hospital food, so I'm just picking. Hospitals will take good care of you, but no harm in bringing some stuff that you like, especially now when I know that like deliveries are limited and all of that. Just I would say have enough. I bring Christmas lights and battery operated candles. I like spa out the place. Turn off all the lights. Again, that's something usually your doula would bring, but so easy to just throw in your bag now. I bring a ball, which some hospitals provide, some don't. I'm really big on ditching the hospital gown. I'm always like, this is your most powerful day of your life. You are not sick. We are coming here to have your baby.
Yeah.
Like, I think we have a lot of symbolic association with a hospital gown. So I'm like, whether you're naked or you get a pretty pusher's gown or just an old nightgown, whatever it is, like, I think there's something in that kind of helps you break out of this feeling of being a hospital patient. So that's something I recommend. Aromatherapy, like you said, some oils. I like peppermint and lavender, massage oils. I'm sure I'm forgetting other things, but those are, honey sticks. It's a good little pick-me-up. Yeah, those are kind of the things that first come to mind.
I brought a lot of what you just said. I brought the battery operated candles. I brought Yum Yum Earth lollipops because I was sucking on a lot of lollipops. We brought oils. I brought a book. I think I was reading Suzanne Summers' book. And then I brought snacks for my husband, a toothbrush, and a Barefoot Dreams blanket. Those blankets are insane. And then I ditched the hospital gown. I did like a pink kind of nightgown. So glad I did that. And then we brought like a little speaker for music.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I would also say bring tons of socks because you don't want to be always stepping on the floor. You want to have, your own fresh pair of socks. That was really important. And those were kind of my top things I brought.
I think having your partner bring a swimsuit too, if they want to join you in the shower, depending on, what you have as an option, so that you can still have a nurse kind of comfortably come in and join you guys if needed, is also a nice thing to pack.
You know what else is really good is the Hydro Flask, the largest one with ice cold water and lemon and mint with the straw, because you're for me, I was laying down a lot. And this Hydro Flask straw, when you lay in bed and you try to drink out of a straw and it like dribbles down,
Yep.
This straw, you can lay down and drink out of it. Yeah. That was probably the most useful thing I had because you're thirsty. And so to be able to lay down and drink was a big one.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I mean, I did this a very long time ago before this was a thing, but I will tell you that I used absolutely nothing that I prepared for, just letting you know, including the playlist that my ex-husband very, very meticulously and lovingly curated. And I mean, none of it. So just don't be attached to it, but like have it. I think it helps people to feel like they're going to have the comfort and the things that they need. And it certainly gives them something to do to pack.
Well, that's how I feel about after the baby. I think we get that same obsession with like, what can I buy to like feel prepared when like
Right.
they need like boobs and arms. Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So given everything that's happening with COVID, lots of birth preparation classes are not being held in person, right?
Right.
So do you guys have recommendations or tips on preparing for birth using virtual sources or books or things that you just can't access right now because we're not congregating in person?
Yeah, but this is great because that means that you can take the course from the person who lives across
Right.
town or across the country. I mean, if you really wanted to take a class at Loom, you can take a class at Loom. If you really wanted to learn from Rebecca Beninati, you can learn from Rebecca Beninati. You know, if you can't get to, you know, so I think it's actually opened things up enormously. I mean, it's a little bit weird. And I think some of the stuff that probably happens in the classes where, you know, you and your partner are positioning it, you know, but everybody at this point, 2 months in, is a lot more used to doing this. And I think I choose to see it as a silver lining in that regard. Cedars has a great class. I think Cedars classes are fantastic. I didn't even think about this, but probably anybody could take those classes. You know, if you're having a hospital birth, I don't know if you have to be registered at that institution, but that is one of the best hospital classes ever. It's taught almost entirely by current labor and delivery staff. They upgraded the classes a couple years ago with a really well-known doula who's the mother of all doulas in the city at this point in LA. Anna Paula. Oh, she's amazing. She's the president of International Dona. I mean, she's just an incredible force and a wonderful collaborator came into the hospital. So I think that this is a fantastic for people, actually.
There's a lot of community, I think, that can be built around this time. A few that Lori Bregman, who's a dear
Yes, of course, Lori,
and mentor of mine. She's been started her virtual stuff like 3 months before COVID, and that's just so Lori. Like she's just like sees into the future. But she's like, I love it. Like has women from all over the country coming together and like building this community. So she's great. I'm offering one-on-one virtual support to people all over the country. Loom, like you mentioned, Beanie Birth, which is Anna Paula's. Those are my kind of go-to recommendations.
For me, I didn't do birthing classes. I already said that. But I do have to shout out my doula. Her name's Andre Lemon, and she was just amazing. She completely, like I said, set the energy of the room. So that was very helpful to be able to pick her brain before birth.
So I guess I know we're running towards the end of our time together, but any parting words for expecting moms as they go into this labor and delivery process, advice or things to keep in mind? Any just like last thoughts, words of inspiration, motivation?
My advice is listen to your intuition. Instead of focusing on everything that there is out there, just really tap into your intuition. It's very strong when you're pregnant and when you're in labor.
Yeah. I think building your support system, kind of feeling like you have those people to lean on is so important, and being okay and with all the emotions that arise, making space for it, disappointments, that are happening because of what we're going through, and a loss of a certain experience. But I think also just holding on to this idea that I really believe that we're all here at a certain time for a certain reason. And I think that's for all of us living through this, and for all of the mothers who are taking this big step right now, and the babies that are coming through right now. I think just kind of holding a thought that we're all here right now for a reason. And I think the babies being born now are examples of hope and a new, brighter future ahead. So.
And I just want to remind people that it's still going to be the greatest day of your life. Like, I have done a number of deliveries over the last couple of months, and other than having to wear a mask, which is something I never did, maybe I should have.
And a lot harder than it looks. I mean, I can't even imagine in like.
Well, we're used to wearing masks.
Yeah.
I'm a surgeon, so
Yeah.
we're not even getting out of the whole like mask drama. Like, settle down. It's really not that hard. God.
I know, I'm a baby because that masks were never part of my.
Well, right, but I mean, right. So I'm not used to wearing a mask while I deliver, and I'm certainly not used to them wearing a mask. But other than that, it's still awesome, and I want people to know that it's still going to be a beautiful, joyful experience. You're still having your baby, and it's okay. It's going to be okay.
There's a wonderful treat at the other side of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.